I think the Georgia Bulldogs are starting to reach uncharted territory for this program, and it comes in the form of how everyone thinks about Georgia. It's I'm looking at all these opinions, I look at all the rankings, I listen to the podcasts, I watch the shows, I do the shows, I do the podcasts, and everyone thinks that the Georgia Bulldogs are the favorite in 2024 and the favorite to do a lot of things. The favorite to win the SEC championship, the favorite to win the national championship, favorite to go undefeated, the favorite to have the Heisman Trophy winner in Carson Beck. Uncharted territory for Georgia. This program's been, in a positive way, it's going downhill. Listen to this analogy. It's like a snowball. It's snowballing down a hill, and the ball is getting bigger and bigger, and it's going faster and faster down this hill. And is the hill a dynasty? It feels like that's what Georgia is heading towards. I think you need to win at least one more national championship for the term dynasty to be allowed to be used pretty freely. I think that two obviously is great, and what they're competing for in the time, like competing for the national championship in 2017, being the runner-up, being as close as they were in 2023, right? That adds to the dynasty, right? Even in the years that you don't win, how close are you to winning? I think that also gets judged. If you just fall off the face of the planet for a couple seasons, I don't think that can happen. But, I mean, look at these. I'll just pull up some of the odds. And the thing I want to point this out is that Georgia's lost staff. That's a little bit more recent, and maybe that hasn't affected the odds as much, but Georgia has lost staff. Georgia lost a lot of production. Georgia, they went and hit the transfer portal, right? And now the transfer portal is going to be changing some of these teams, and I don't think the transfer portal is the best way to build a roster, a championship roster at least. That's my opinion at this point in time through the transfer portal. I don't think it's going to be the smartest way to necessarily go about things. I understand if teams feel the need to do that. Ohio State felt the need to do that. But despite all of what's going on, everyone just seems pretty clear about where they feel about Georgia. And even, in winning back, in that little back-to-back run, even this past season, Georgia wasn't like this heavy favorite the way that they are heading into this season. It was Alabama. And obviously, the final shift in all of this was Nick Saban's, obviously it was on his own volition, but Nick Saban no longer being in Tuscaloosa as the head coach of Alabama, it really was what the last shift was. Because now you can go to all these social media lists. You can go to all the experts lists. Who are the best coaches in college football? Everybody's number one is Kirby Smart. And so that has a big thing to do with this. But I think that there's just despite a lot, I think I'm stumbling a little bit. But what I really want to say is, as someone who covers Georgia, as someone who usually thinks very highly of Georgia, higher than the national experts, obviously, because I'm closer to the situation. As someone who covers it in a much more detailed capacity, I don't think I'm as high on Georgia as the national media is and the Vegas odds and all of that combined. And I still think Georgia has a very, very, very good chance to win the national championship. I'm almost surprised by I'm a little bit surprised when Ohio State didn't just jump over, to be honest. I think this is a reactionary world that we live in, and I'm surprised that adding Downs, adding Will Howard, adding Judkins, adding Chip Kelly, I'm surprised that this hasn't been just a takeover. And I'm surprised that Texas hasn't taken over. I think that those narratives get fed better in the media. So the media is on Georgia, whether it feels like it or not in the verbiage. I'll point out the Stephen A. Smith, Paul Feinbaum, Shannon Sharp conversation from the other day, which made me feel that there is kind of a push in the direction towards having a positive narrative with Georgia. Not that there is a negative one, but the experts they're being clear. Georgia's number one. This is the number one football program in college, and I think they've got the best coach. They might have the best quarterback. There's a lot of bests and a lot of firsts and a lot of greatest going around and being thrown in there in sentences with Georgia. But let's talk about it for a few more minutes. Ryan Curley from Dawg Post here. I'll get through the promo. The link is down below for our newsletter. The link is down below for EcoPoly. So spring's coming up. Summer's coming up. You're gonna be grilling in your backyard. You're gonna be having cookouts. You're gonna be lounging. You're gonna be sunbathing. Ecopoly's got everything. Everything outdoor furniture. It really is comfortable. It's made from recycled plastics. You got to check it out. At least do us the favor of checking them out with the link that I'm putting in the description of this video, along with our newsletter. Got to pump ourselves as well. Make sure you're checking out the Dawg Post newsletter if you want to be informed, you want to be up to date on everything Georgia and college football. Excuse me. Let's move on. The other thing that surprises me about this, and I think I've made this point before, so if you're unfamiliar with my take here, please listen. I have deemed, and I've done a lot of looking around, the teams that I really feel are true contenders, which I think there's not more than 10 of them. There's probably not more than 8 of them. And there's really, at the end of the day, there's probably not more than 4 or 5 of them, if we're being honest, because this is college football. It's why I've had gripes about college football playoff expansion. I'm over it now. But Georgia, I think, after my research and my knowledge on the whole thing, I think Georgia's got the toughest schedule in college football out of all the teams that I think are capable of winning a national championship. Clemson is your non-conference. Alabama at Kentucky, at Texas, at Ole Miss. You still got to play Tennessee and Auburn and Mississippi State and Florida. Like, you got to go through the SEC schedule in addition to just all the extra stuff, right? And 4 serious road games like that is a lot. And then a neutral site against Clemson is a lot. Well, Georgia still has the best odds to win the national championship. They've got plus 200 odds to win the SEC championship. They got plus 300 odds to win the national championship. Ohio State plus 480, Texas plus 700, Oregon plus 850, Alabama plus 1,200. So something that's interesting too is this is according to FanDuel. They give better odds for Ole Miss to win the SEC, but not to win the national championship with Alabama. Texas behind Georgia at plus 300 compared to Georgia's plus 200 odds to win the SEC championship. None of those teams have as tough of a schedule as Georgia. That tells you what you need to know about Georgia. Everyone thinks that they're significantly better at this point in time. Everyone thinks Kirby Smart is better at this point in time. I mean, he is just better. But the odds to win the national championship, being plus 300, Ohio State plus 480, like I said just a minute ago, having to deal with this gauntlet, and then, possibly an SEC championship. Now, you don't have to win the SEC championship to win the national championship, and that's been the case even with the 14 playoff. That's been the case in some years. It wasn't the case this past season. It will be the case in the future, and we will see another non-conference champion like the Georgias, the Alabamas, the Texas, whoever's of the world win a national championship. But this is a gauntlet for Georgia, and people think they're going to get through it. They have the highest win total, tied with a few teams, the highest over-under win total line at 10.5 wins. I'd take the over. If I bet on this stuff. I would take Georgia over 10.5. I could see Georgia only losing one of these games pretty easily, to be honest with you. I think that Georgia's going to go undefeated at this point in time. No one wouldn't know. Back to what people think about Georgia. They're a double-digit favorite over Clemson, ranked 19 in the country. What does that really say? They were a double-digit favorite over Oregon. They're a favorite over Alabama. They're a favorite to win every single game in college football this year. Carson Beck, Georgia, I made a whole video about Carson Beck the other day, and the more you think about it, it's a little confusing to me that they have Carson Beck as the number one Heisman odds, as the guy with the number one Heisman odds. It shows you where people think about Georgia in this program. I think Carson Beck's great. I think that he's going to be a top 10 pick in 2025. I think that he could be an NFL starting quarterback. I don't think he's the most likely player to win the Heisman. It's just not the way Georgia's offense works. They spread the love. They run the ball when you need to. It's a balanced offense. It's not a super pass-happy offense anymore, or it never really was. It's not the super run-heavy offense anymore. It's a balanced pro-style offense. And I think that Carson Beck is one of the best quarterbacks in college football. But having him as the number one in odds to win the Heisman Trophy doesn't make much sense to me because, hate to say it, but yeah, a Jalen Milroe that could put up more rushing stats and can probably have more marquee moments I would understand why he would have higher odds, even if I don't think he's as good of a player or quarterback as Carson Beck. I maybe the Georgia's offense is the most likely to explode like that. But I think that the experts are telling us what all we need to know, and is that everything has shifted over, and now Georgia's number one, and they've been number one for the last few years.